Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Archaeology of Connecticut. I am Glenda Rose, President of Friends of the Office of State Archaeology, joining state archaeologist Dr. Sarah Sportman, co-host Scott Brady, and today's special guests. The focus of today's program is the Connecticut State Museum of Natural History. For those of you who are not familiar with this museum, it's a real gem in our state and should not be missed. The museum offers some great natural history and cultural artifact collections that are fascinating. In addition to talking about the museum, today's guests will be discussing a very special event coming up this month called Mega Mammal Day. It sounds really exciting, and I can't wait to hear all about it. What a great way to spend a hot summer day in comfort, learning about extinct animals that existed right here in Connecticut and participating in other fun activities. Now here's Sarah to introduce our guests who will tell you all about it.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our July show. This month, we're joined by my colleagues, Dr. Erin Kuprewicz and Elizabeth Barbeau from the Connecticut State Museum of Natural History. And as Glenda is saying, the museum has a long tradition of public outreach and education, as well as impressive natural history, archaeological, and ethnographic collections. In Connecticut, the Office of State Archaeology is actually part of the museum, and we work together on events, programs, and collections. So today we're going to be talking about the museum and the collections and its programs, and especially our upcoming Mega Mammal Day event that'll be held at UConn later this month, and we are all very excited about that one. So to get started, Erin and Beth, welcome to the show. Would you please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and your roles at the museum?
Sure, I guess I'll go first. I'm Dr. Erin Kuprewicz, and I'm the Curator, Collections Manager, and Engagement Specialist at the Connecticut State Museum of Natural History. I joined the museum back in 2019, and I act as kind of the science liaison. So I interact with other scientists and the public at different events and programs involved when we make exhibits and use of our collections in outreach, teaching, and research. As a little bit of my background as a scientist, I'm a mammal ecologist, and I do research in tropical areas, but also using specimens in our natural history collections.
Thanks.
I'm Beth Barbeau. I'm the administrative and program coordinator for the museum, as well as our museum informatics specialist. So my job revolves around public programming, as well as managing the paper archives and historical documents of the museum. I have a background in archives and special collections, and I joined the museum formally in 2022, but I started way back when we had our Army Ant Guest grant. So that was all about Carl Rettenmeyer, the original director of the museum. So I've been with the museum informally for 5 or 6 years.
Great, thank you both. So just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about the museum, how it was established and its role in Connecticut?
Sure. The Connecticut State Museum of Natural History was established by state statute in 1985 after about 3 years of advocacy by faculty members at UConn. The board was originally all faculty, and it's always been kind of run by subject area experts in different biological, geosciences, archaeological departments across campus. In 1987, the Office of State Archaeology was established under the museum, and we've been running ever since. But since 5 or 6 years ago, we haven't had a formal building of our own. So even though we're the official state repository for all of the natural history and cultural and archaeological collections of the state, we've been focusing more on public outreach and kind of bringing the museum out to the community over the last few years. So we try to serve all of the citizens of Connecticut, and without a place for them to visit, we try to bring the museum to them.
Yeah, it presents some interesting challenges, I think, to do this without a formal structure, but there's been a lot of really creative ways that we've gotten around that and managed to do some really successful exhibits and programs. So with that in mind, and with the mission of public outreach and education, what types of events and programs does the museum offer?
Right now, we've been focusing mostly on small group nature hike programs where we bring an expert in a specific area out with a group of people to explore the natural world. We've been doing some work with a herpetologist at a property in Windham, Connecticut, where she's been tracking the herpetofauna. So we've been bringing folks out and checking cover boards, and that's been very successful. We also have an ongoing relationship with a bryologist, someone who studies mosses, lichens, and liverworts. And so we bring folks out and they learn how to use hand lenses. So we've been focusing a lot on getting people used to different kinds of organisms and how to use the tools of the trade to study them. That's been one of our big ones. The other thing we've been focusing more on is festivals and kind of fairs and things like that. So we go to street festivals, going to an agricultural fair this summer, we go to our local community fairs, and we kind of bring activities for kids, specimens, and a little bit of information for the adults to kind of hit all of the age groups as we go out into the community.
Yeah, I think that some of those activities have been really great for kids. I was thinking, I brought my kids a couple times, and I know they really like the footprints that you did, the animal footprints. And obviously the herpetology walk was a huge hit with my snake-loving child. So you did get to see a giant snake on that trip.
Yes, you did.
So that was really fun. And, from my perspective, from the Office of State Archaeology, it's been great to work together on a couple of programs, including this year, when you guys were able to come out and help us with one of our school programs, taking archaeological materials into the public middle school here and working with fifth graders to learn about archaeology and Indigenous history here in Connecticut. So it's a great partnership for the Office of State Archaeology, and also lots of great local programming. What about, you talked about how the museum was initially established on campus and was basically run by faculty and directed by faculty. What does the museum provide in terms of opportunities for UConn students, graduate and undergraduate students?
Do you want me to take
I'll
jump in if you need to, Beth. So we've recently established the Student Friends group, the Student Friends of the Connecticut State Museum of Natural History group. They've gotten really involved over probably the past year and really the last academic semester. Students are gone over the summer, so we've kind of slowed down a little bit, but getting students involved, at least from my end, with collections has been really rewarding and really fun and actually really helpful for me as well. I'm really like the person who handles the collections the most, and I can't do it all. We have so many things and such a diverse array of object and specimen types in our collections that I can't work on all of them all the time. And so we've been really pushing, and we're trying to, this upcoming year, really get students to turn into conservators, mostly from the natural history side of things. And that kind of means that they're caring for objects and specimens, but also repairing them. If teeth are falling out of a skull, I can train them on what kind of adhesive they have to use to glue them back in correctly, how to label things, how to rehouse things correctly, and how to create inventories as well. And also doing things like cleaning stuff, vacuuming taxidermy specimens. Again, we have a lot of different types of objects in the natural history collections, which is what I deal with mostly, but also in the cultural collections that needs a lot of care and upkeep for us to continue using them in our programs, bringing them to people in exhibits around campus and within the community as well.
Yeah, I think that, you're going to say something, Beth?
Yep.
Oh, I was just going to say that another thing that the Student Friends group has really allowed us to do is get volunteers who start with us, maybe on one little help out setting up an activity for a day, and then they get involved more, say, as a work study student. And we've had one or two who have then gone on to, graduate study in the area of archives or museums or natural history collections. And so the Student Friends have been we're kind of a nice bridge from the undergraduate education to a more advanced study in museums and natural history.
Yeah, and it's been great to work with some of those students who've been doing that, because they've had lots of really great ideas for activities and projects to do during some of the public events. that have been a lot of fun, and it's nice to see them getting involved and excited about it. What about, Erin, can you talk a little bit about your skinning club that you do with the students, which sounds like a weird...
Don't worry, it's not an official club, as I always say. No, so it's a thing called Skinning Club. I started this with a collaborator of mine back in 2020, right before the pandemic kind of shut everybody down. But then we restarted again in 2022. So we've been running 3 years consecutively now, again, during the academic year. And it's basically me spending 3 hours every Friday afternoon. It's not for credit. It's not a class. It's not for pay. It's purely volunteer work, but I'm training students how to create specimens out of salvaged birds and mammals primarily. So I have a lot of I have permits all throughout the Northeast to collect salvaged material, so a scientific collecting permit. So if somebody finds a bird that struck a window on campus or in the community, they can bring it to me and it falls under the purview of my collecting permit. I put the bird or the mammal in the freezer and it's awaiting me. Usually, so going back to, I don't have enough time to actually create specimens out of these salvaged birds and mammals that we collect. We always want to grow our collections, and also we can use these specimens as touchable specimens, because a lot of the things in the outreach and also in the research collections at the university were prepared with pretty bad chemicals. And so these ones, we don't use any chemicals in preparing them. We remove all the gooey parts, we stuff them with cotton and dry them, and then we can touch them and bring them to events. They've actually been really, really popular. But I train students how to do this. We don't have any kind of museum studies program at the University of Connecticut. So this is a way, again, students are really, really interested. They really want to handle things. They want to touch real objects. And I've kind of been assessing, like, why do you guys come to Skinning Club? What are you is it for training? Is it for social aspects? And there's a mix of it in there, but a lot of them, like, my favorite response is, it's a way I can touch birds in a legal way. That was like my favorite response. And so again, I'm training them how to create specimens for the museum with this training factor, and they have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun, and again, it helps me get through my freezer backlog, and it gives them this skill. And so, Skinning Club, Fridays 2 to 5 p.m. Anyone is welcome, but it does cater mostly to undergrad and grad students at the university. But anyone with a connection can come on, and I'll train.
Erin, I have to say that's my favorite technical term that we've ever had on the show, the gooey stuff.
The gooey part. Yes, exactly.
Well, I think it's really interesting because a lot of people don't necessarily think about where specimens come from for museums, or even the comparative specimens that we use for archaeology. So as a zooarchaeologist, I need animal bones for comparative collections, and I have, in fact, made off with like the carcass of like a roast pig after a wedding because to process for bones for the comparative collection. So, I mean, the lengths that we'll go to are extreme, but necessary.
We're here for you, Sarah. We'll help you.
I know that you're kindred spirits in this.
Yes,
absolutely.
There are a number of stories about Nick Bellantoni, the former state archaeologist, up on the 4th floor with his flesh-eating beetles, and the smell was pretty legendary, I guess.
Yeah. Don't have those anymore.
For that comparative collection.
Yes.
Dedicated.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the collections then. As the state's official repository for natural history and archaeology collections, what types of material do we have here at the Museum of Natural History?
Sure. We, again, have a lot of diversity in objects that we have. So from the natural history end of things, I mentioned taxidermy. So we have hundreds of full body and shoulder mounts of taxidermy specimens, mostly birds and mammals, but we do have a couple snakes here and there, some herpetofauna, so reptiles and lizards as well. We have skins, we have antlers and horns. We have osteological collection that's pretty good, mostly skulls. So this is bones, again, of recent things. So not a huge, we have a good fossil collection. We have shells as well. oh gosh, what else? We have a lot of insect specimens that were mounted in this really cool way. You usually think of pinned specimens, which we have a few of, but not a lot. We have a lot of butterflies and moths that have been pressed in glass, which is really cool. It's called a Denton mount. And it's this really interesting way of encasing Lepidoptera, so butterflies and moths, in a way you can kind of handle them easily. And we have thousands and thousands of those that we bring those to programs all the time. Ethnographic objects, which you guys could probably speak a little bit more to, the archaeological collections. I don't know, Beth, what else am I missing here?
I'm thinking about some of the scientific and natural history illustration and art that we have. One of the biggest collections is the Rex Brazier bird painting collection that we hold, which are, you might know the number better than me, over 800 paintings of birds from around North America. Rex Brazier was a very interesting character that was painting around the turn of the 20th century and traveled up and down the East Coast and around the country, observing birds from life and honing a technique that really captured the birds in their natural habitat, along with the foods that they would have eaten and the plants that they would have made their home, or that they would have kind of spent their time in. So there's a beautiful painting collection, and that's something else that we steward and are working on doing more research into. We also have, along with our regular collection files, we have a pretty good documentary photography collection. Carl Rettenmeier, the first director, was an avid photographer and used photography in a lot of the exhibits, what he called migratory exhibits, in the 90s. So we have thousands and thousands of slides documenting the natural history of a lot of Connecticut, but also kind of around the world. And those traveled to different museums and other places, as well as the Office of State Archaeology's historic photography collection.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of astonishing how much material we have, and how in-depth a lot of the collections are, and the potential there. My favorite thing in the collections, I would say, has to be the Farmington Mastodon, which we hold at the University of Connecticut, which is the most complete mastodon skeleton that was ever found in Connecticut. Do you guys have favorites?
Oh man, we had to choose our favorite specimens for our first newsletter, and I defaulted to a bongo, which is a really cool African ungulate, so a hooved antelope, basically, from Africa. They're like this big potato-shaped animal, orange fur with like little white stripes, but they're pretty big. So I'll say bongo, also because it's fun to say.
Yes, I think at the time, my favorite piece that we don't really have any provenance for, it was something I discovered by accident because it was stored in a photo slide box. So I was like, oh no, another slide. And I opened it, and there was this beautiful Art Deco style pin with a beetle body as the body of the butterfly. So it's that, using a insect, and Erin, you maybe know better than me what the green beetles that they used in jewelry. But that's probably my favorite piece because I love the art and science layover there.
We've kind of started talking about the extent of these collections, and you just mentioned the provenience. And I know a bunch of people that have worked at different institutions and museums. Can you talk a little bit about the difficulty of matching up your physical collections with the documentation that's been collected for 100 or 120 years?
Sure. You hit it right on the head. It is an ongoing battle that we constantly struggle with. And I think we actually have, and Beth can probably talk to this more, we have a really good handle now on our like physical archives, a lot of communications that had happened prior to both of us joining the museum. But yeah, it's an ongoing battle. Whenever I'm like, oh, cool, the taxidermy collection, again, for example, it's like I've got a little bit of info, but not a ton. I know when we got it, but then, and so it's like, when did we accession it? When did we accept it? When did it move to our spaces? But anything about actually collecting the animals this is Alan Budney in the 1950s, 1960s. He was trophy hunting in Africa and the US in North America. And I don't have a lot of info about that. So things like location data, temporal data. So when was this collected? What year? Have no idea. And that is a real shame. That just goes back to lack of record keeping at that time. Because again, a lot of the taxidermy, for example, were just collected for trophies and to have in somebody's house. And now we're using it. We're trying to kind of extend the use of these specimens into research realms and again, outreach and teaching. And we're really finding, don't have as much info as we wish we had. But we are really, really seeking to make what we do have available to everybody, to the public.
And
yes.
Sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I would like to say finished, but I don't think we'll ever be really finished. We've just finished going through all of our collection files and doing a digitizing and organization project with some students who have experience in archival description. And so we've been surprised that some collections actually have some really interesting primary source documentation in it, but because so many of them were donated as collections as opposed to collected by the person who was donating them, we don't have, like Erin said, that information about exactly where they came from or when they were collected, because the person who donated them didn't necessarily, they bought them, they found them, they accumulated them over a lifetime and then gave them to us. So provenance is a very difficult thing, especially with natural history collections. Yeah. If it wasn't recorded at the time, then there's not a lot you can do.
So in terms of the taxidermy collection, which we can talk a little bit more when we get into Mega Mammal Day, this is a really, really important and impressive collection for a lot of reasons. One is just the range of taxa that are represented in the collection, but also we have a lot of animals that are no longer extant, no longer alive on Earth, and they represent some really important examples of those animals. Can you give us a little bit more information about the types of animals that are in the collection and the significance of those specimens?
Sure. In our taxidermy collection, so this is also a project. So I'm kind of harping on the taxidermy collection a lot because we've had students working on this project and this collection fairly recently. So it's one of our best documented, kind of most up to date. We've been taking data on the specimens as well, cleaning them, taking care of them. And so in terms of the scope of our taxidermy collection, again, these are a lot of full body mounts. So on a base with kind of natural habitats, full animal body, skin stretched over a form, very realistic. And these are superb, superb specimens. They look fantastic. They look really amazing. We also have a lot of head or shoulder mounts as well. So that's kind of what you would think of. Again, these were trophy collected animals for the most part by Alan Budney, and also Cloder was another donor of taxidermy. We have a lot of things from Africa. So lots and lots of antelopes. And again, these would have been hunts back in like 1950s-ish, and they were brought here, but also a lot of things from North America. So we have also, like a little spoiler alert preview for Mega Mammal Day, we have this awesome gray wolf specimen that we're actually going to bring to Mega Mammal Day for people to see. We're bringing it out of storage for like the first time in a long, long time. And it's a huge gray wolf, but it's not gray, it's black. So it's this melanistic form. So the fur is actually black, even though it is a gray wolf. And it's really beautiful. We're also going to have a moose, which is probably this study I did with the student, Lily Kane, this former undergrad student here. We were measuring the body lengths of our taxidermy that we, again, know were collected in the 1950s. And there's everything from Africa and North America. And comparing these sizes of these animals to sizes of animals in current day populations. So 2020's populations. And we actually found the moose that we're going to be displaying also at Mega Mammal Day and is our full body mount. It's like 30 centimeters longer than moose that are alive today. And again, this is kind of this idea that humans hunted out really, really big things back in the day. And we're seeing the after effects of that in current populations and extant populations, even after like 70-ish years. we aren't seeing things that big anymore in populations. And so the moose is huge. Again, I've got to get up on a step ladder to vacuum it and get it all cleaned up and ready to go. But we have lots and lots of African mammals. We have rhinoceros. We have a lot of birds as well that are usually kept in glass cases, mostly from North America, those ones. But the mammals run the gamut from North America, Europe, Africa, really special specimens that we're excited to bring at least a little sampling out to the public. We really want these to be seen by people.
Yeah, I really love the Victorian style bird mounts. So they're very like elaborate aesthetic cases, and
me too.
Those are really cool.
They are fun.
They might be my favorite besides the brooch. I love the Victorian.
They're pretty cool. The other thing too, just thinking about your project with the body sizes of the taxidermy too, like we see this in the archaeological record of Connecticut as well. We've talked a lot on this program about our work at the Hollister site, which is a 17th century Connecticut site with a lot of wild game that people were eating on the site. And the deer bones that we find on that site are so much larger than the ones we have in our contemporary our modern day comparative collection. I mean, it's very clear. Like when I first started looking at those bones, I had to keep like double checking and making sure it wasn't like a moose or something. They were so big. And we talked a little bit about this too when we had Alec Weitzel, who was a recent UConn graduate who did his dissertation research on some of the environmental aspects of colonialism, looking at, these processes in deer bones, and also I think he's looking at oyster shells as well.
Oh, so cool. Yeah.
A lot of this is dovetailing. I think you can see where it all kind of fits together.
Yep.
I will say, having seen that collection, and I'm not a hunter, I'm not a real naturalist, but those moose are huge. And I know there's several in there, and they all just seem bigger than what I expect a moose to be.
They tower over you, and even some of the heads. So I'm talking about like the really big one is the full body mount, because we have the full body to measure. But some of the heads too, we want to actually get one of our friends at the Office of Sustainability. She's a Boone and Crockett hunting trophy assessor. And so you can actually give values to like the symmetry of like moose antlers or deer antlers, the number of points, the spread. There are certain metrics that you can actually quantify and attach to these specimens still. And I would love to have her come out to our collection and actually give numbers to us, because I think we have at least one record holder of a moose for like a symmetrical, really wide spread of antlers with a lot of points. And I always forget which one it is, but you can there's just so many in there that are huge. It's really crazy.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think also, there's opportunities to kind of broaden that and looking at some of maybe the skeletal collection, using different skeletal elements as proxies for body size.
Yep.
With measurements. So that's also a really neat possibility.
Yeah.
So what about in terms of the public? I know we talked about getting things out to the public for viewing and things like that whenever possible. We're going to put a lot of really neat things on display for Mega Mammal Day, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But what about, people coming to do research in the collections? How does that work?
I would say, again, we're here for the public. We want people to be able to access these things. But again, because we have so few people working directly with the collections, we have things kind of spread out all over campus. I'd say the best way for people to do research with our specimens is to contact me directly. So they can reach me through our Connecticut State Museum website and reach out about working with the collections in a research aspect, which we do have people doing active research on specimens, like the mastodon, for example. We have people doing tooth wear stuff right now. But that's the best way, is just come out, reach out to me through email, and we'll get something set up. I'll show people around. But we really do want people to use our collections. Again, we don't want collections to be stagnant. We want them to be used. We want them to be seen. We want the public to see them.
So that kind of leads me into my next question. But, as we mentioned earlier, we don't have a permanent structure for the museum at present, and it's been a while since we've had a building. So can you talk a little bit about the creative ways that, you managed to use the UConn campus as a museum for exhibits and a kind of a stage for programs? Because I think that, it's been kind of cool to watch the ways that different exhibits have gotten put up and utilize different spaces on campus.
Absolutely. So one of my goals when I started, I was like, I want to come up with a different department and a different outside entity to work with every season. I started on the Army Ant Guest collection, like I had said, and through that we had an initiative called the Ant U Initiative. And that was kind of figuring out a way to take that collection, which is Army ants and their guests, and see how many departments across campus we could work with. And so through that, we identified a couple of really good collaborators that we still work with today, primarily the Puppetry Museum. So the Ballard Institute Museum of Puppetry, which is a fantastic museum of the history of American puppetry and international puppetry. Every year we do a program with them that is part of these museum days. So, for Shark Day, they built a life-size megalodon jaw that people could come and take a tooth out of and then go around and learn about sharks and then write their fact or decorate it and put it back in the jaw. For our Tree Hopper program, which was a broader impacts exhibit that was developed with some faculty and a postdoc in a laboratory in the ecology and evolutionary biology department. So we have a very strong relationship with them. A lot of our exhibits are kind of developed in collaboration with them, where we use the science of someone in that department, we build an exhibit, and then we reach out to someone like puppetry, to digital media and design is another department on campus, and we kind of build outreach programs and interactive activities kind of collectively in an interdisciplinary way. So those are some of the most recent and most long-running collaborations we have. Another new one that I've been really excited about the last couple of years is the Arboretum. So the Yukon Arboretum is also campus as Arboretum is their kind of tagline, where the entire campus is cataloged. All of the trees and shrubs are managed, cataloged, and some of them are as old as having been planted in 1896, I think. So we've been doing walks with the co-chairs, and we just did one with the tree warden that was really rewarding to the public because she was able to kind of talk about the history of Connecticut's flagship university through the trees. So those, I think, are some of the local Yukon connections that we've been making. And now we're starting to branch out to the Mansfield Public Library and the Last Green Valley, who we've been a member of, but now we're starting to work with them on more kind of public programmings at festivals. The other new-ish thing that we've been doing, although I think we participated in the past, is Yukon Extension's Bug Week. So we're doing a group Bug Week activity at Third Thursday in Willimantic, where we're going to have a shared kind of set of tables with the Willimantic Public Library, us, and the Last Green Valley, and we're going to be exploring all things bugs. So we're going to have activities on pollinators. We're going to have some live caterpillars eating tomatoes, so you can kind of see how their mouth parts work and learn a little bit about pests at one phase of their life and pollinators at a later phase in their life. So we've been developing a lot of good relationships and testing out a lot of activities that we can then bring, around to other places.
Yeah, that's great. And last year, in July, we did Shark Day, which was a fantastic event that was really successful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, that was where the megalodon jaw was on display, which we're hoping to bring out for another Shark Day. We just need to give it a little rehab, and then the public library would like it.
Excellent.
Put some new teeth in there.
Yeah, put some new teeth.
For the 50th anniversary of Jaws, right?
Yes, there you go.
I like
That's
it.
great.
Perfect.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Well, let's shift gears then and talk a little bit about Mega Mammal Day, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. Can you tell us about the event, where and when, and what we can expect to see?
Sure. So Mega Mammal Day is going to be held on Saturday, July 26th from 1 to 5 p.m. Most of our public programs are held in the Gant Science Complex Light Court, which is in the building right next to the North Parking Garage on Yukon Store's campus. These programs are free and open to the public. We've got, every year, I've been trying to add a few more people to our collaborative group, and this year I'm really excited. We're going to have Mountain Dairy Farm on site. We're going to have someone who's going to be spinning sheep's wool. People are going to be able to try it themselves and take a little piece with them. The Puppet Museum will be there again. As Erin said, we're going to have some of our largest and most extravagant taxidermy on display, as well as, lots and lots of skulls for comparison. Erin can talk more about kind of the learning outcomes that we're hoping to show by that. And then lots of touchable things so that people can kind of feel the animals that you might see all around you, but never have the opportunity to get close enough to touch.
Yeah, we're going to have, like Beth mentioned, so actually this is from Skinning Club. We have a few round skins that people will be able to touch, including one of my favorite. I always love the little things. And again, the kind of like potato shaped things are my favorites. So a mole that was skinned and prepped, again, as a round skin. So it's stuffed and you can pet its fur in either direction, right? So moles go forward and backward in these really tight tunnels and their fur is pettable. It lays in any direction. Like, right, with a cat, you have to pet it like a certain direction so you don't scruff it up. With moles, you can pet it either way. So please go to Mega Mammal Day and pet that mole. We'll have like a squirrel, a lot of pelts that we've added to our touchable collection as well. So think beavers, otters, skunk, so striped skunk, very soft. A big push that we have, so again, kind of conceptually bringing everything together. We want people to have a lot of fun and see interesting things that they might not see. So we will have things from far afield. So we have a lot of African skulls, Asian we'll have some Asian taxidermy and skins to look at, but not touch. We'll have a lot of skulls so people can compare skull shape, skull morphology, and teeth and diet. So kind of like, oh, this is a grazer, this is a browser, this is a frugivore, this is eating fruit, this is eating herbs, this is eating insects, a lot of that as well. So we'll have kind of big, wonderful, extravagant things from the area as well. We'll have a little area to teach people how to camera trap, and we'll have a camera live taking photos of people kind of as they move through. Again, we'll bring a few taxidermy specimens, mostly larger things, but a few small things as well, showing people up close and personal what is in your backyard. You might not see it, and how could you detect it? Also teaching people things like how to identify footprints, so different kind of markings, leavings, so like poop and scat of different animals as well. We'll have replica scat. Don't worry. I don't think we have any fake or any real poop that we're bringing to the event this time. And we'll have things too. We always like to have activities kind of geared for younger audience, but also maybe a more advanced learner audience as well, like scavenger hunts that kind of guide people through the different thematic areas, and there's a prize you can win. So again, show up, have a great time, learn a lot of fun things, and ask us hard questions because we also really like to be challenged as well.
Yeah, and we will have a few elements from that Farmington Mastodon on display, which I'm very excited about.
Oh yeah,
because they rarely get to go out in public, and
that's really special to have those on display for people to see.
It is, and the moose.
Yep.
I think that this whole thing has been great because we've got so many great lines out of this show, like talking about vacuuming a moose. I feel like there's like a children's book that you could write about.
Don't even get me started.
Specimen conservation, like if you vacuum a moose or something like that. It's a opening line, I think. I'm picturing you on like a stepladder with your.
That is exactly what I do. That's what happens.
Yeah, can you maybe let's talk a little bit more in depth about some of the activities we're going to have. Can you tell us a little bit more about the poop trail?
Sure. So one of the things that we're trying to get across, as Erin had said, you might know about these animals, but you wouldn't, and you've seen them from far away, but you wouldn't know how to recognize the sign that they leave, or you might not know what their, feet look like or their teeth look like. So we are using, as she said, the skulls as well as replica feet, like footprints. So they're casts of different animal feet that can kind of show you when it's pressed into a substrate what their tracks look like. So you can see what it would look like if you saw a deer footprint or a bobcat versus we don't have mountain lions, so we won't have any mountain lions. Maybe better is coyote versus wolf. So we have coyote footprints versus wolf footprints. So you can kind of see the difference. So that's one of the kinds of things. But the poop, the idea is that you'll be following different tracks and identifying the scat and what animal it comes from. So depending on what kinds of things they eat, there might be some hints so that you know, if an animal eats plants, then you might be looking for this kind of scat. So if you see this, what do you think it is? It's not going to be a bear necessarily. It might be, how big is it? Mm-hmm. Don't want to give too much away because we want people to come in and be challenged. But the idea is kind of, how do you track an animal, and how would you recognize it based on the things it leaves behind? Its footprints, its scat.
I'm most intrigued by the fact that you can just buy replica scat.
Yep, a bucket of scat. Explaining that to purchasing is always
it's for educational use.
Yeah, yes, there's a great company we found where you can just buy a bucket of replica scat, and we've been having a lot of fun with that.
I bet.
Yeah, actually, I like the idea. I'm in a hiking club, and we're always seeing poop out in the woods. And it's like, wonder what that came from. So
exactly.
Exactly.
Kids,
Yep. And everybody either has this really interesting like obsession in some way. It's like, whoa, that's kind of weird. Let me learn more about it.
Right.
And that's a really good point, Glenda, because I think some people think they hear about these kinds of programs and they think, oh, that's for little kids. But then when you get there, we try to really make sure that everything we have is tiered so that an adult is going to get something out of it. And maybe even a little tiny kid that can't even talk can at least feel and see and, touch and kind of get a little bit of something out of it, a little bit of exposure. So we often find adults taking, if they learn you can get 2 prizes, one from the hard scavenger hunt and one from the easy scavenger hunt, everybody's doing both.
Yep.
So we hope that adults as well as kids come and enjoy themselves and learn something.
Sarah, like you were saying, it's going to be exciting to have the Pope Mastodon make a public appearance, which doesn't happen. Can you kind of explain a little bit about how important that is as archaeologists, we're always thinking about people on the landscape. Can you talk a little bit about what he tells us?
Yeah, so the Pope Mastodon, as I said, is our most complete mastodon specimen that's ever been found in Connecticut. It was found in Farmington, Connecticut back in 1914. And it's fairly complete. It actually predates, it's a little bit older than the oldest human habitation on the landscape, but it does kind of come in at the kind of the end of the mastodon and the beginning of the human habitation of this area are really overlapping events. And so this particular mastodon probably was dead and gone before the first people came here, but certainly other mastodons were still around on the landscape. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before when we talked about the Brian Jones site in Avon, how there's that scraper there that has elephant protein on it, suggesting that people, 12,500 years ago were if scavenging mastodons, at least, if not probably hunting them. But I think that, for us, it's just an interesting thing to think about that, because you really see this kind of push. A lot of megafauna are going extinct already. They're in stress already because of environmental changes that are happening at this time period. But when humans come on the landscape, that seems to be another pressure that really just kind of pushes them over the edge. Yeah. Whether it be competition for territory or hunting pressures or whatever it is, the appearance of humans on the landscape seem to really be the end of it for the megafauna here. Through a lot of the country. So archaeologically, that's really interesting. And we're constantly kind of hoping to find those sites where those two things converge and come together and we actually can get solid evidence. I mean, bones would be better, but they don't always preserve real well at that amount of time depth here in this region. So we know that people hunted them in other parts of the country, though.
That's really cool.
Let's see. We are coming in down towards the end of this, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the museum we'd like to.
If I could jump in from the studio, if I kind of want to jump on Scott's observation and talk about the ripple effect of what of the body of works that you have on display and the engagement opportunities that you have in your outreach. The takeaways. I mean, it's a small thing about the moose, but that's a huge thing. The fact that these beasts are not as big as they used to be. What are some of the other takeaways that are the ripple effect of being engaged and supporting your efforts and maybe even helping you have a home again, a physical structure again? Can you speak to the ripple effects, the reasons why people should enjoy but should engage and support?
I think one of the first things that comes to mind for me is the way that our collections have been used as inspiration for a variety of different uses that maybe we didn't think of. One of the things that came up was in the Ant U project was engineering students thinking about whether you could engineer a mechanical ant that would move the same way that ants would in a swarm, and what would that kind of help tell you about what you could do with robotics. If they were seniors, it's not something that was super developed, but it was an interesting starting place for students that they came up with after learning about the biological system. Our specimens have also been used for artists as inspiration. I think that there's a concept in natural history of the extended specimen, and the idea is that you're keeping specimens and you're keeping as much data as you possibly can, and you're preserving them physically as best you can because you don't know all of the potential uses in the future for these things. And I think a natural history museum is really important for that reason. We don't know where the species and the biodiversity is going to go necessarily. And so our collections are going to be a point that you can look back on and see, what did you have, what was seen in a place and time, and now what do you see today, looking backwards from the future. So I think the biggest reason you should have a natural history museum is because you don't know what the future holds, and I don't know if Erin has more to speak on the idea of that extended specimen, but that's what I really think about when I think of our collections. Even though they're teaching collections, and we don't have a lot of data, it still shows that these things were here in the 20th century, and that could be useful information for someone, or at least inspiration for someone in the future.
Yeah, I think, Beth, that's a perfect way of summing it up. You hit it right on the head. Again, we can't even predict how these things might be usable in whatever front in the future, right? We're preserving these things. We're stewards for all of these specimens, these collections, and we want to bring our objects, our specimens, our programs to diverse communities around the state and beyond, because we don't know what might resonate with somebody in what way. And so that's kind of like, we're here, we want lifelong learners of any ilk to kind of come see what we have, be inspired, and go from there and just be really creative. And I think we're pretty creative with what we have and what we're able to do with kind of like a little bit here and there. But again, this idea of the fact that we don't have a building, things are kind of spread out. We use the campus as our exhibition space. We are trying to fundraise for a living building. The idea would be that this is the first living building anywhere that would actually house a natural history museum, which would be really special. We would love to be able to create this landmark for the state, for people to come in, be inspired, have these transformative experiences, and kind of work on that. So if you're interested, please check out our website and look at our A Vision for the Future Living Building page. And that'll give you more ideas and more kind of answer some of the questions about what that would be. And the takeaway is we would love to have a building that functions as a specimen, is what we kind of say. So
yeah, I think it's like super important as well that you're stewards of actual physical artifacts and physical items in today's world of virtual reality and AI and all that, to have a place where you could go and see actual items in 3 dimensions. I just think it's really important.
Absolutely.
Yes. And all of that is fed by data from museums like us. And so it's really important that we keep the the integrity of the physical items that are the backbone of what we think of on the internet anyway, I mean.
Yeah, I think, having seen a lot what the museum has done and what the Office of State Archaeology has done, I think my takeaway has been, you guys have always left your visitors, your attendees with more information than they came from, right? So that if there's something going on in their town, maybe it's at risk of a development ruining an archaeology site or changing an environmental area where you have certain wildlife, that they're more aware of that and can address that and understand they can have a voice to stand up and protect that, or to at least ensure that things are done correctly. And I think that's a really important role that can't be underestimated. And I think obviously the more you guys can do, which a museum would be, a permanent building would be a nice part of that, would certainly help further that work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, we do a lot, I think, in our nomadic form right now. And the things we could do if we had a building, I can't even imagine right now.
And I think, showcasing all of this is great. And I think it's fantastic that we can have these events and bring all of this stuff to the public. But I think it also is really important for kind of driving home the importance of like housing and maintaining collections of this type for research purposes, because the amount of potential information that is locked up in these specimens is really important. Thinking as, we face the challenges of like climate change and species loss and all of these things, we can look backwards as well as into contemporary time and to see, what impacts these things are having on animals, right? Like Erin's measuring project and things like that. And it can potentially, these are the kinds of data sets that can help us find solutions to some of the problems that we face in the past. So anything we can do to keep, people's interest alive and keep support for these kind of collections and this kind of work, I think is really important.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think that we're pretty much close to wrapping up. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about Mega Mammal Day. We'll also be there with some bones from animals from archaeological sites that people can come and see as well. That's July 26th, right? Yukon, at the Gant Pavilion. And just before we leave, can we go around and just kind of give everybody an opportunity to find out how to get in touch with you or the museum if they have questions or things that they're interested in going forward?
Yeah, sure. I think the best way to find out more information is go to our website, csmnh.uconn.edu, and kind of find things from there. Again, I'm Erin Kuprewicz. You can find me in the Contact Us page. Reach out if you're interested in collections.
As always, you can reach the Office of State Archaeology at osa.uconn.edu and follow us on our social media pages.
Yep, FOSA, we're on Facebook, or you can find us on our website. You know where.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.